My name is Andrew St. James, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel, Deep Beneath the Ocean. The world is experiencing deep convulsions as exemplified by the epidemics of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, child adverse effects, and single-parent families. Within this chaos, we as a people are looking for a deep beneath the ocean kind of peace. In this channel, I'd like to explore these particular convulsions, and I'd like to also explore ways in which we can actually descend into a deep and meaningful spiritual life to help us through all of the chaos.
The Institute of Mental Health reported in 2004 that approximately 26% of adult Americans suffered from a variety of mood and anxiety disorders, representing close to 58 million Americans. Between 1984 and the year 2000, the use of antidepressants, specifically SSRIs, increased fourfold. Starting with Prozac in 1986, Zoloft in 1991, Paxil 1992, and Zalexa in 1998 for major depression. Then in 1994, the FDA approved Paxil for obsessive-compulsive disorders. In 1996, Zoloft received approval for panic disorder. And in 2002, Paxil, Zoloft, and Lexapro were also approved for panic disorder. There are numerous reasons why people should feel some level of anxiety, but are medications really the answer?
The world fails to satisfy us. So we are thirsting and hungering. We are in a great famine in the spirit, in the soul, in the mind.
We may have in fact become too dependent on pharmaceuticals to handle both the pressures of growing up and the deep sense of remorse and hopelessness that is so pervasive in our culture. Are we witnessing a rising prevalence of individuals that are troubled by a greater remorse of conscience? Rather than examine this sadness by becoming introspective, we run from it.
And so I think we're trying to find this joy, this interior peace, which can only come from Jesus. So if you haven't discovered Jesus, if you haven't discovered that joy that comes from knowing Him and loving Him and serving Him, you will be left empty. And so you got to try to fill it somehow. And so we try to fill it with wine, women, and song. Try to fill it in all of these unhealthy ways, and they still fail to satisfy us. The food and the drink and all of the sexual impropriety, and we try to find it in our work, and none of these things to satisfy us except for Jesus. We have, in the level of the soul, this spiritual hunger, and we're not satisfying that spiritual hunger with the Lord Jesus, with the food that sustains us to everlasting life, namely His own body, blood, soul, and divinity. That is the true food that sustains our souls, and sometimes our bodies in miraculous ways for some of the saints. It's interesting that devoid of this, then we try to satisfy ourselves sometimes with these natural foods, and it goes to great excess because we're just trying to satisfy this hunger again and again. And it doesn't satisfy us. The modern world does not understand this, because the modern world says we avoid pain and seek pleasure. And we see this in a very short-sighted sense. Whereas the Christian can see that in order to gain eternal happiness, eternal joy, we may have to experience some suffering. Here we are mourning and weeping in this vale of tears.
It is a grace to comprehend suffering, to approach that cross that so many tend to flee from. Approaching this cross is like getting close to fire, for there is a fear that we will be consumed by it. But yet, we fail to understand the loving nature of this fire and how it redeems us. The lives of the saints teach how to bring balance in this quest of approaching Jesus' cross.